So, boys and girls, I absolutely loved the first Dune movie that recently came out, the most latest adaptation of Frank Herbert's incredible novel series out there. Just absolutely incredible universe. It's just so expansive and so wonderful and full of so many complicated characters out there with so many different layers and so many different levels out there. It's just an absolutely wonderful universe to dive yourself into. Now, given they are books that are very dense and sometimes they're a little hard to get through, but there's a lot of great adaptations out there that really express the story in a lot of wonderful different ways. I always harken back to the sci-fi original series that actually came out. It was a TV adaptation. They took 2 hours to tell each section of the first book, and it turned out really, really well, and I actually really enjoyed it. And Children of Dune was fun, too, and they kind of added some Dune Messiah stuff to it. But either way, that's not the point. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Dune 2. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I went and saw Dune 2. I went and saw it opening weekend with my wife because I enjoyed the first one so very much and I absolutely loved it and I really enjoyed it. And I was excited to see what was going to on in the next one. The first one was absolutely epic. It was a grand scale, made a whole bunch of money. It was a really good time. Everybody really enjoyed it. And so the next one, they got a bigger budget and we're like, oh, they're going to do even better things and even bigger stuff. And it was great all the way up right until about, I would actually say about the first 15 minutes. Because my problem with this movie is one of my favorite parts about the Dune saga is the relationship between the spouses, whether it is Paul Atreides' father, Leto, and the lady Jessica, or whether it is Paul and Chani, his actual wife. Yes, I know technically she's not the legal wife, but she is the one he calls wife. And that will always be something that will never change, right? She is his rock. She is the one that is in his corner. She's the one that is there for him at all times. That is something that goes throughout the entire story. And of course, her tragic ending during the original story as well. And here's the problem with this. So I walk out of this movie. I watch it. I go and sit it with my wife. We go see it opening weekend. I walk out of this and I went, well, that's disappointing. And I said, because my biggest issue with that is I loved the relationship with Chani and Paul. It was absolutely incredible. The way she had his back, the way she took care of him, the way she was still this strong, like kind of warrior woman. But at the exact same time, she always had her man's back. She understood the politics of the universe. She learned a lot from Lady Jessica about what Paul actually needed and how it was to support a man like him and all this other kind of stuff. She had all of this wonderful character growth, learned so much and became so incredible. And the first words we hear out of this Dune movie, some of the first words we hear in some of the opening sequences is we hear Chani making fun of Stilgar for believing in religion and believing in the prophecies, okay? That is a direct violation of Chani's character. Don't believe me and don't believe that this wasn't intentional. These changes weren't intentional just to destroy and devastate not only the Paul Atreides character, but also we've got this from over here, from DuneNews.net. Now, this is an editorial from Kara Kennedy. It says, editorial, Chani and the Emperor-powered woman stereotype in Dune Part 2. No family, no faith, just fight. Chani's portrayal in Dune movie eliminates key roles she held in the book, reducing her agency and depth as a character. And that's my biggest issue. She's supposed to have a son with Paul that she loses. She's supposed to completely, totally understand and be faithful and stand by his side and understand why he has to do what he has to do with the Emperor, even though the entire time she's trying to comfort him because he's having these horrific dreams of all of this absolute slaughter and carnage that is going to come if he continues to walk down this path. But he knows it's the only way through, that there is no other path to handle that doesn't end in his death and all the complete and total destruction of Iraq. So he has to go forward with this path. And Chani understands that. She's with him the entire time. This movie completely and totally destroys that, completely and totally devastates that in so many different ways. They make her the literal trope of strong, independent women that don't need no man. So instead of being an actual good, strong fighter, as well as an incredible, faithful partner to her man, no, instead of being that, no, now she's wham power. She makes fun of the religion that she was completely and totally faithful to. She also insults him. She slaps him in the face after going on a vision quest because she was upset about it. And then she completely and totally betrays him. And then at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, at the very end of the movie, the last scene is instead of Chani standing by her man and getting ready to face the future together, no, she runs off on him, all pissy, on a freaking sandworm. Right? And she also gets her girl power moment too, where she's out there fighting a bunch of crazy ass warriors out there, and they even get the little zoom up close on her face where she's like, "Arr!" Like this. It's literally was nothing more than girl power nonsense. And I got so much backlash for saying this. I got so much backlash for saying that yes, they made Chani a Mary Sue. That's not even Chani, that's Zendaya. They made the actress Zendaya nothing more than a Mary Sue in this movie. And guess what? It was nothing more than to destroy the anti-hero that Paul Atreides always was, because Paul Atreides did not want to do what he wanted to do. He wasn't some psychopath that wanted to become some crazy villain out there to completely and totally devastate the universe. No, he was a man trapped by his own visions and saw no other way out. And Chani, the actual Chani, not Zendaya, understood that and loved him and stood by him every second of the way. This movie completely and totally devastates, completely and totally destroys that. And guess what? It was intentional from the director from the very beginning to completely and totally destroy and devastate the wonderful and beautiful character that Chani is and make her nothing more than another trashy, not even a one-hit wonder because they've never made a hit, nothing more than the trope of another typical Mary Sue, wham in power, don't need no man. And here's the video from him. As you can see from the clip, from the little headline right here, Chani is my secret weapon in this adaptation. Chani was actually given agency by Denis and has more conviction for her people. She was the surrogate for the audience and getting key to Herbert's main themes across. Oh, and here's the problem. Like we already said, no faith, however, Dune Part 2 offers a new take on Chani, however, eliminates key roles she had in the original novel. And yes, and this is the thing, this is the other part of this too, because anybody, this is one of the, I'm going to let you guys listen to this from his own words. Listen to this. So it's a little quiet, it's a little hard to hear, but there's subtitles, so let's check this out.
It's fundamental.
So yeah, the question asked is Dune Part 2 director Denis Villeneuve on why Zendaya's Chani is his secret weapon. Not why he completely and totally changed her from a character, but no, apparently she's his secret weapon.
It's
to completely and totally destroy the show. He says it's fundamental.
Chani is my secret weapon in this adaptation, because I wanted to be faithful to Frank Herbert's initial intention, because when the first book was released.
So this guy talks kind of slow, but basically what he's saying right here is that Frank Herbert apparently was disappointed that people saw Paul as a hero coming out of the first book versus being the anti-hero that you actually, if you actually really understand the depth of what's going on, that's really what he is. And he even in here admits that that's what Frank Herbert wanted. He wanted him to be seen as an anti-hero, not an actual straight up hero. And apparently that's what he thought he needed to do in these films instead of waiting for Dune Messiah, like Frank Herbert supposedly did, to correct that, although I don't really think it's an error it needs corrected. I don't think that's something a lot of people thought from by the end of things, but it's like this is a guy that has to do incredibly bad things in order to accomplish a hopefully positive goal at the end. That is the definition of an anti-hero, and you know that from the very first book, because he's down to slaughter a whole bunch of people and he's willing to genocide an entire species of sandworm just to make sure he gets his way, just to make sure he gets power, just to make sure that Arrakis is safe. He's not a good guy. He's really not. And this idea of that, I guess there might be some people that called out and saw him as a hero, and maybe some of the letters that Frank Herbert got did upset him. But that's not an excuse to destroy Chani's character. That is not an excuse. So he even says right here that this was his intent. He didn't want, in order to try to be so he wanted to try to be faithful to his interpretation of how Frank Herbert felt about the books, not an actual faithful adaptation of the book itself, which is what the fans wanted. No. He wanted to be faithful to some ideology that he thought was prevalent at the time. So this is where it goes on. So this is where he says right here. This is where he says so clearly he didn't give a crap about the actual character of Chani in the book. No, he clearly didn't care about that at all. He just cared about using her as a vessel for his narrative, for his interpretation, for his push.
I used Chani's character and transformed her. I created a critic distance. She allows me to have a distance with Paul,
which, if she has a distance with Paul, then that's not Chani. That's a completely different character. You have created a new character. Zendaya does not play Chani. She plays whatever version of Zendaya you wanted to create, because that is not Chani. You have completely and totally destroyed her character and made her a one-dimensional farce.
From her perspective, I can see more clearly Paul's trajectory.
So essentially what you're trying to tell me is because you were too dumb when you read the books, or you didn't read the books, to understand that Paul was going to have to do a lot of really bad things about it, because you were too dumb to understand that. I assume you thought the audience was too dumb to understand that threatening to wipe out an entire species of animal, something that the people that you're trying to protect have basically worshipped for thousands upon tens of thousands of years, That's not a bad thing at all. Nobody would obviously see that. No, you're too stupid. You dumb audience out there. You're too dumb to understand that Paul isn't the hero. He's not Captain America. You're too dumb to understand that. So instead, he has to completely and totally destroy a fan favorite character like Chani to rewrite her in his own image. So that way we can all understand. We can all make sure that Paul's a bad guy, right? Because it's like there's this scene in there where Paul walks up to Princess Olorna and just like completely like ignores Chani and is like, hey, I've got to marry, we're going to get married and yada, yada, yada. And that's how things are going to be. Like, no. That's not something he wanted to do. That's something he had to do. And Chani understood that for politics. The reason why Lady Jessica and Duke Leto never got married was because of politics. It didn't stop their love. It didn't stop how they felt about each other. It was politics. And they knew that because that's the world that's the world that Frank Herbert built. That's how the system works. So in order for Chani to be his faithful wife, she has to understand how that system works. And she's there with him, supportive the entire time. She's the most strong, great, one of the greatest women I've ever seen inside of storytelling. You know, as being a strong, supportive, faithful wife, no matter all the BS going around her. She could have easily gotten mad. She could have easily gotten upset by all the BS she had to lose. I mean, she lost so much. But she wasn't. She was always his faithful companion. She was always his rock. And Denis Villeneuve decided to completely and totally destroy that because he thought you were too stupid to understand that Paul was an anti-hero. He thought you were too dumb to be able to figure that out on your own. Well, I, for one, boys and girls, don't think that. I think you're all very smart. And the fact that not only did they drastically condense way too much crap into this movie, leaving massive amounts of stuff on the ground. I mean, literally, Paul was supposed to be with the Fremen for years. He was supposed to be teaching the Fedaykin all the weirding ways, which is something Denis Villeneuve decided to completely forget about after leaving it at the ending of the last movie with Stilgar saying to Lady Jessica, boy, I can't wait to learn your weirding ways. If only you could teach a man how to do that. I'm sure we have much to teach each other. Yeah. And then boof, the weirding ways go away because that's what's supposed to make these fighters so amazing. Is Paul is supposed to come in and teach them the weirding ways. That's what makes his fighting force so dangerous. That's what makes the Fremen so dangerous is because he teaches them all the weirding ways so they can move like he does. All of that's completely gone from the book. There's none of that. There's no training. There's no hero. No, Chani's just this incredible, awesome, amazing fighter right out the get-go. She's the bestest that ever was. And then she decides to crap all over Stilgar and his faith and laugh at him and make fun of him, trying to tear him down again. So not only does she tear down the guy that's supposed to be the love of her life, but she also decides to tear down the guy that is supposed to be a mentor to her, who is supposed to be a mentor and a respected leader of the tribe. They decide to completely and totally make fun of him and make him nothing more than a laughing stock because he believes in the religion, because he believes in their faith, because he believes in the prophecies. The same prophecies that have trapped Paul Atreides into what he has to do. Dune 2 is an abomination and affront to Frank Herbert's beautiful work. Denis Villeneuve, I'm sorry. You were too stupid to understand that Paul was always supposed to be an anti-hero and never a hero. And I absolutely detest you for destroying the incredible character of Chani and replacing it into whatever abomination, whammon power, angry female, whatever feminist nonsense that you made Zendaya do in that movie. So for all the people out there that gave me crap and said that Dune 2 was this incredible masterpiece and I was completely and totally insane about it being a bunch of woke garbage, by all means, go read this article over at DuneNewsNet.com. They literally, with bullet points and articles and examples and quotes from the books, they give you everything they did to destroy the complex, beautiful, and wonderful character it is for Chani just because this moron thought you were too stupid to understand the story. No, instead, you completely and totally devastated the story that should have been part of Dune 2. And you know what? I hope you never touch another Dune movie because trust me, after this abomination, I certainly won't be giving it any chance in hell. And guess what? My recommendation, Dune review, 6 out of 10. You know what? 5 out of 10. Because of everything they did and the intention behind it. He intended to destroy Chani's character. And I got called crazy for pointing it out. Who's laughing now, boys and girls?